Welcome to the Clean Earth Living podcast. I'm Tori, your guide to sustainability and living clean on a changing planet. Are you ready to decode climate change, ditch eco-anxiety, and make a real difference? Whether you're here to take action in your life or explore the bigger picture, we're making it fun, we're making it relatable, and totally doable. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome to the Clean Earth Living podcast. This is our first episode. I'm so excited. I have wanted to start some sort of media education company regarding sustainable living and climate change and the intersection of the science of it all and how it actually can impact your life and how your life can actually impact the world for a really long time. And I have really kept telling myself, don't do it. Just stay working in your corporate job, live a cushy life, just make your little paycheck and come home and live a chill life, watch TV, paint your nails, go on a jog. I can't do that anymore. So I definitely still have a corporate job. I work in the world all day long, but something was just eating away at me. You have all this knowledge and all this passion for climate science and sustainable living and sustainable business. Why are you not doing anything with it? I mean, I actually am doing a lot with it, but why aren't you doing more with it? So I'm so excited for this specific form of content, which is my podcast, because it takes a freaking heck ton of research to create every podcast episode. And so it's basically I'm doing 3 to 6 hours of continuing education every single week. And I think that's really good for me. It's really good for the type of business I'm trying to build. And I'm just really excited to be continually, speaking with professors, speaking with industry professionals, doing my own research, and being constantly in the stuff. So today's episode is called Earth's Burning Questions Answered Climate Change FAQs. And because this is the first episode, I want to go over the most basic of most basics for anyone who, you've heard these words a lot and you're actually don't know what that is. If someone came up to me on the street and was what is a greenhouse gas? I'd be a gas that's a greenhouse, So I want y'all to be able to understand oh, this is what climate change is. This is what it's caused by. And it's okay. It is incredibly complex. I don't want to diminish it. The earth that we have is so complex, it's crazy, but you can understand these topics with a few bullet points at a very high level. Not all hope is lost. Okay. So we're going to get into that, but I want to start every episode with hopeful climate news because there is a concept, and I experienced it bad the first semester of grad school when I was getting my master's degree in sustainability, called compassion fatigue. And also maybe just existential crisis. The climate crisis can be very mentally tough, especially for empaths, especially for people who plan ahead, especially for people who are thinking what's going to happen to my grandkids? If you think more than 2 steps ahead, you have the potential to be a little panicked, and that is normal, but there's so many bright people working to combat climate change that I really think it's all going to be okay. But this is why, I have this podcast. We need everyone to be involved, but we don't need anyone to be panicked. And so I'm going to start each episode with hopeful climate news. Just pick a random story that I have found in my various sustainability news sources that I rely on. This week's is from Sustainability Magazine. It is December 27th, 2024, when this podcast comes out, which means that 2025 is 4 days away. And I love business news also. I was a finance major at the University of Texas. You can see my diploma behind me. But VC, which means venture capitalist, predicts cleantech and infrastructure boom in 2025. So this is from Sustainability Magazine, and it basically is saying that this specific person who's managing director at Obvious Ventures, named Andrew Beebe, predicts that renewable energy sources will overtake fossil fuels for the first time ever. And so basically what that means is that, with any venture, once you have more than 51% of the share, you kind of call the shots. And so, yes, it is so great that potentially in 2025, for the first time ever, more renewable energy will be created than fossil fuel derived energy. But that also means that we will have more power when it comes to the energy sector. And that is very important. He also predicts advances in battery chemistries. Batteries are a really hot topic issue, especially EV, electric vehicle batteries, because they're very valid. I'm not trying to belittle the argument, but like African children are mining these. Like, how can you say that it's better when it causes so much turmoil? And so when you are mining these rare minerals from the earth, and that's a super valid point. But there's so much to say about that. There's other minerals that we can use. We can use recycled minerals, and we're predicting pretty big breakthroughs and pretty necessary breakthroughs in 2025 regarding how we secure this material and what material we're able to use. In grad school, this was several years ago, and I'm sure it's changed a million times, but I wrote a paper on replacing certain rare earth minerals in batteries with manganese, which is a super, super, super prolific mineral. And so there's all these different things we can do. We're not just stuck on, well, if we're going to have EVs, we're just going to have this terrible way to mine the ingredients forever. Like, that's not the case at all. So 2025, we're going to see big changes for that. Carbon removal will hit overdrive, whatever. Like, this is literally, I don't want to say this. Okay. Shoot. I'm going to say this, but please understand what I'm saying. It's like, no, I'm not going to say it. Carbon removal is not the answer. It is a Band-Aid for a solution. It's a Band-Aid for a problem when the solution is changed behavior. If you're not going to change your behavior, you're not going to solve the problem. So carbon capture, I guess, is important for certain aspects, but I just really don't even like to talk about it as it's going to be our savior, because it's literally not. But anyways, so super, super hopeful news coming out from people who are really profit driven, and a huge component of driving change towards more sustainable ways of living and working is it has to be innovative, it has to be profitable. And this article is saying that it is, and that we're going to see that because people who are driven by profit, people in venture capital, are predicting a huge shift towards clean tech infrastructure in 2025. So that's my hopeful climate news. Sorry, that was long-winded. On to our topic. So, have you ever wondered what greenhouse gases are, or whether your daily actions even matter in the fight against climate change? You are not alone. So in this episode, we're diving into some of the most common sustainability questions, breaking them down in simple terms, and trying to make it as fun as possible, because I know it's a lot of science and we're not all STEM people, but we all are people that live on this earth. So, as a reminder, any scientific facts stated in this podcast have sources linked in the show notes. Any graphics or visuals will be on our Instagram, and these are from heavily vetted and researched sources that I approve of someone who has literally taken research classes on how to do research in grad school. So please trust me, but also please ask questions. If you feel as though there is a contradiction, I would love to hear it. And I am, of course, down to correct myself at any point, but I really think this is accurate. Okay, let's get into it. What are greenhouse gases and why do they matter? Okay. Greenhouse gases are a very teeny tiny part of our atmosphere. I believe they make up 0.04%. Mostly our atmosphere is nitrogen. Did you know that? Fun fact. It's 78%. Okay, don't come for me. This is from my brain. This is not from a source. I believe our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, 1% argon, and 0.04% greenhouse gases. So it's a really small part. And our atmosphere is not, by and large, made up of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the most prolific greenhouse gas. So greenhouse gases are made up of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. There are a bunch other, but those are the big ones that people talk about. Methane, people classically say oh, cow farts. It's actually cow burps, but I can't get into that right now. But the Earth's atmosphere doesn't need a lot of these in order to do their job really effectively. And so the job of a greenhouse gas is to trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. And so when sunlight passes through the atmosphere, It comes through and it warms Earth's surface. And then what happens when a surface is warm? It radiates heat back up. And things like oxygen and nitrogen are like, cool, the heat's going to radiate. It's going to go all the way through the atmosphere, back out to the world, or back out to the galaxy. But greenhouse gases say, no, 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 stay down, heat. And so the heat, it's like a greenhouse. It's like, you know, in a little English garden. If you go into a greenhouse, it's like way more muggy and hot than the rest of the world outside, because that's why it's called greenhouse gas, because it radiates the heat back down and traps it. So greenhouse gases are like the Earth wearing a blanket. And the Earth is really balanced and really smart, and it's been like that for millions of years. So the Earth made its own blanket, and its own blanket is perfect and great. It keeps the Earth perfectly warm. But what humans are doing by adding more carbon dioxide and more methane into the atmosphere, we are like giving the Earth another blanket and another blanket. And we know what it feels like when, you know, you wake up in the middle of the night and you have like your sheet and your comforter and a blanket on because you were really cold when you went to bed. And now you're like, oh my God, I'm like sweating and I feel disgusting. You want to take the blanket off. The Earth can't do that because the Earth didn't put these blankets on. And so we are adding all these blankets to the Earth's atmosphere via greenhouse gases, and the Earth can't do anything about it. But this is why I always wonder, like, you know, one car's emission and then another car's emission, and I guess it all adds up, like not to equal the whole atmosphere. And no, not to equal the whole atmosphere, because like I said at the beginning, greenhouse gases make up 0.04% of the atmosphere. And so only like the amount that we are creating now is enough to the balance in the atmosphere right now. And it is 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt proven that it is due to human activity. And we've tipped the scales way farther than the Earth would have ever on its own by burning fossil fuels. And not only burning fossil fuels, but at the same time cutting down forests, which do an excellent job of absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And so we're like filling up the bathtub with a stronger faucet than normal, and also not letting the drain go out. Like we're clogging the drain and turning the water pressure up. And so it's just like the atmosphere is overflowing with greenhouse gases. And so I hope that makes sense. Basically, with too many greenhouse gases, it means that more heat gets trapped because there's more molecules in the atmosphere that are pushing the heat back down instead of letting the heat just escape. And so this leads to rising global temperatures, melting ice caps, extreme weather, rising sea levels, and other really serious consequences. So the Earth can become much hotter and too hot to survive if we don't mitigate this, which we are, but, you know, we could always be doing more. Okay, so I hope you now can tell all your friends and family what a greenhouse gas is. Next question is, what does carbon emission mean and why are they bad? So carbon dioxide is the most prolific greenhouse gas. And so when we say carbon emission, we're talking about carbon dioxide CO2 emission. And it is carbon dioxide released by burning fossil fuels. Also, that's the biggest category. You have the carbon footprint of things like beef, which is measured with methane production from cows and things of that nature. But it's a smaller, by and large, when you're talking about carbon emissions, you're talking about burning fossil fuels. And as we just discussed, excessive CO2 traps heat, causing climate change and extreme weather. So examples of carbon emissions are driving a car, powering your home with coal, things of that nature. So who is responsible for climate change? So that's just a brief overview of like what carbon emission means when people say it. That was infinitely shorter answer than my last mammoth question about greenhouse gases. It's not as scientific of a term, I guess. Greenhouse gas is like a very earth sciencey process, and carbon emission is really just the term we use for carbon dioxide being released. into the air. Next, who's responsible for climate change? Individuals, corporations, or governments? Oh my God. So I knew it was corporations and governments. Like, I could have guessed, but the way I was researching this, I was flabbergasted. And then I was like, peeling back the layers, like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. You guys, listen to this. Listen to this. Okay. Oh my God. 25 corporations and state producing entities account for 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions. I'm going to say that again. 25 entities account for 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions. 25. There are 8 billion people, I think, right? Is that accurate? Okay. It's in the ballpark. There are 8 billion people in the world, and 25 entities are responsible for over half of our emissions. That is crazy. Okay. But I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, they are the world's largest entities that create like the coal power and the oil and gas and all of that. But I just I can't. What this tells me is that it truly is in the hands of corporations to make changes. But who uses what the corporations produce? Individuals. And so my whole mission, sorry, this is going off topic, is to relate back individual action and individual sentiment back to change of corporations, because corporations aren't going to change if their stakeholders and constituents don't want them to. Corporations are always going to they're always going to follow the money, follow the demand. And so humans are the ones that control the spending and the demand, and we need to be the ones to change that, because no one's coming to save us. These governments don't give a fuck about us. They are not making climate policies the way that they need to. Corporations are only looking for money. We need to be the ones to say, oh my God, we're not going to be here if we don't turn this ship around. Okay. Soapbox off. Here are the top 10 lists, just so you can get a flavor of these top 25 entities that account for 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions. The country of China's coal production as an entity. Saudi Aramco, which is the world's largest oil producer and exporter based in Saudi Arabia. Gazprom, which is a Russian state-owned energy company. National Iranian Oil, which is, I presume, a state-owned entity for Iran's oil. ExxonMobil is number 5. Coal India is number 6. The country of Russia's coal production as an entity is number 7. Premex, which is Mexican state-owned petroleum company, is number 8. Shell is number 9. And CNPC, which is China's largest natural gas producer and supplier, is number 10. So as you can see, almost a third of emissions come from publicly listed investor-owned companies like Shell and Exxon that are on this top 10 list. 59% are from state-owned companies, which is, the country of China, National Iranian Oil, Coal India, and then 9% come from private investments. So basically, who is responsible for this? I mean, the corporations are the ones doing the work, but we're the ones using the energy. And so we really need corporations to innovate. They need to be doing their job to innovate towards cleaner energy, which they will only do if there's a demand for it, aka by individuals. Governments need to regulate and understand that their people are going to be, displaced without water, without agriculture, etc., if they don't plan ahead on this. And individuals need to advocate and act accordingly. And so I really say that it's on corporations when things happen. Like, I was thinking, I ordered dog food on Amazon yesterday for next day delivery. And I was like, oh my God, I'm using Amazon. I feel like I have such a pit in my stomach. Me ordering dog food on Amazon because my dogs are out of food is not what's causing the climate crisis. And so I think this goes back to compassion fatigue. Also, you can do everything, you can try your best, and we should be trying our best. We should be eliminating chemicals from our homes. We should be reducing our carbon footprints. We should be, investing in companies that don't use fossil fuels, etc. But at the end of the day, we need to take a step back and understand that a vast majority of this is on corporations and governments. And the main thing we can be doing, other than shaming ourselves for using plastic bags, is advocating for policy changes, is putting our money where our mouth is, etc. So it's everyone's fault. It's mostly corporations and government's fault. It's also our fault, but don't feel bad. Okay, that's the takeaway. This next question, FAQ, is so hotly contested. I could write a dissertation on it. But I took so many classes in grad school about climate change adaptation for every different sector, every different aspect of our lives. But the question is, why is climate change such a big deal, and can't the planet adapt? And climate change is so much more than our, instead of being 82 degrees outside on average, it's now 85 degrees outside on average. You wouldn't notice that, and we probably wouldn't care as just humans, like going outside and being like, I wonder what it feels like today. I think that's what people think it is. And I think people think that that's the extent of it. Being like, well, I mean, I guess I don't care if it's, it used to be back in the day, it used to be 72 in May, and now it's 75. Oh, well, what a big deal. Who cares? I think that's what people think. And I don't blame them, because I don't care if it's 75 instead of 72 or 35 instead of 32. That's not what we're talking about, because temperature on average has so many implications on extreme weather, on rising sea levels because of melting ice caps, on ecosystem disruptions, on water supply, on agriculture. These finite, itty bitty little changes over time have a huge implication on our Earth systems in ways that we as humans wouldn't pick up on. In my house right now, unless I look at the thermostat, I couldn't tell you if it was 72 or 75. Like, we can't feel it, but that does not mean that it's not incredibly catastrophic if the temperature on average were to rise 3 degrees. And I think that's the real takeaway, is that throw out the concept of, can you feel a 2-degree difference outside? If you walk outside and it's either 72 or 74 and you don't know, that is the most irrelevant way to look at it. Like, please just throw out that way of thinking, because our Earth's systems change. A 1/10 of a degree change starts when it comes to how quickly ice caps are melting, when it comes to how water moves through waterways. So it is so finicky, and it has been perfected over millennia, and we are effing it up at a insanely high rate. And so just a few facts to like really scare the shit out of you. There's time for hope and there's time for fear. By some estimates, in the absence of effective adaptation, global yields of crops could decline by up to 30% by 2050. And it's about to be 2025. And I saw this fact on Instagram. Not this fact. I saw something on Instagram the other day that scared me. Also, 2050 is just as close to 2025 as the year 2000. Okay, that's what I saw on Instagram. This fact about crop yields is from a source that I will link called Giving Compass, and there's a study linked in there. 2050 is not far away. 2050 is just as far as the year 2000, which also was not far away. And so this is not some far off problem. This is literally happening right now, and it's going to continue happening. On to water scarcity. Half of the world's population could be living in areas facing water scarcity by as early as 2025, which is this year, about to be in 4 days, probably when you're listening to this podcast, unless you are an early adopter, which thank you. So that's terrifying. And then lastly, heat stress, which is not heat stroke. Basically, heat stress is a precursor to heat stroke, kind of like heat exhaustion. A study published in 2020 warned that heat stress could affect as many as 1.2 billion people around the world by 2100, which is 4 times more than now. So, I mean, I live in Austin, Texas. I see on the news all the time in the summer of people suffering heat exhaustion, people dying from heat exhaustion. Like, multiply that by 4. That is icky. Like, that's heartbreaking. Especially for people who are not wealthy Americans who have air conditioner and don't have to be outside. Like, people live outside. Like, the outdoors is the earth, And if it's just existing puts you at risk of heat exhaustion for a quarter of all people, that is not how humans were designed. And that's really an indication of the fact that this climate change is not, oh, well, the earth always goes through ice ages and heat, like periods of climate change. Sure, yeah, over 3,000 years, but not over 50. Because if this was the earth's doing, we humans would be adapting slowly through genetics and evolution. But you can't do that in 50 years. That's 2 generations. So that's off topic. But lastly, we have, do individual actions like recycling or using less plastic really make a difference? And I touched on this a little when we were talking about corporations and governments really being at fault here. So the answer probably won't surprise you, but yes, it does make a difference, but mostly when you are inspiring broader systematic change. For example, advocating for renewable energy, voting for climate policies, and making it not happen in a vacuum. And so this is why the power of social media is so incredible. If you're listening to this, I encourage you to be a little vocal on social media, and not in a condescending way. Please don't be condescending, because people who are voting against climate policies have really valid reasons in their own brains, and I don't want to discredit someone who's trying to do the best for themselves and their families. But I think just like leading by example as publicly as we can when it comes to sustainable living, when it comes to, getting the word out that you can easily go on your energy provider's website and change to renewable energy for like $3 extra a month. There's certain things that we could all be doing and we could all be sharing and really bringing the discourse into the public forum. And that is what's going to really have a exponential effect. And so what I mean by that is, you recycling it's like a drop of water in the ocean. But all of America making a different choice, that is huge. So I will name a few. If everyone in the US ate no meat or cheese for just one day a week, it's so unrealistic and so honestly freaking annoying when people are like, we all need to be vegan. Like, get a grip. Literally get a grip. But if we all just ate no meat and cheese for one day, or one day's worth, so that's 3 meals, maybe 3 meals throughout the week, it would be like not driving 91 billion miles or taking 7.6 million cars off the road forever. This is from the Environmental Working Group. I have the source linked. That's insane. Meat and dairy is unfortunately has a very large footprint compared to plant-based diets, which is heartbreaking for me because I not only am such a meat eater, but also such a protein snuff. Like, protein is so important to me, especially animal-based protein. It's way more bioavailable. It's way more comprehensive. But if we can take 3 meals a week or one day a week to not eat meat or dairy, that can make a huge difference. And I said this on TikTok a couple weeks ago, and people were really pissed at me. I'm like, listen, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, here's the facts, okay? Next, if every American home replaced just one light bulb with one LED bulb that had earned the Energy Star, we would save $580 million in energy costs and prevent 7 billion pounds of greenhouse gas emissions every year, equivalent to those from about 690,000 cars. And this is from EnergyStar.gov. Something that's really cool about living sustainably oftentimes is that it's cheaper. Like, sustainability is your grandma's and your great-grandma's resourcefulness repurposed into a new age term. But saving on your energy bill, like, who wouldn't want to do that? And when it's literally saving greenhouse gas emissions. So if you don't have LED light bulbs, what I would say is do not go out today and buy new ones for your whole house. Wait until one by one your incandescent bulbs burn out, and then go buy a LED bulb. Because what I will always say, and what is the answer to most questions regarding sustainability, is the most sustainable thing to do is use what you already have. So what that means is let the incandescent bulb run out and then go buy the LED light. I fully agree that that is the best way to do things, and you can come for me if mathematically I'm wrong, but that incandescent bulb is going to end up in the landfill today or 2 years from now, and the LED bulb will have to be purchased today or 2 years from now, and we need to stretch these things out, okay? Like, that waste is just as detrimental as the greenhouse gases that it's producing. So let your incandescent bulbs burn out, and when they finally do, replace them one by one with LED bulbs. Last little example, plastic waste. Recycling just 10 plastic bottles can save enough energy to power a laptop for more than 25 hours. This is actually an individual fact, but I'm sure rolled up to all of America, it would be bananas. But recycling really, and creating net new materials out of recycled products has a substantially lower carbon footprint than mining and creating those products net new from petroleum or from aluminum mined from the ground. And so, and this source is from the EPA. So recycling can really save that amount of carbon. And we should all be doing that. And we can make a whole episode about that too. So that is it. Those are the climate change FAQs answered when it comes to just like the nitty gritty science of it all. Not every episode is going to be so science heavy. In fact, I hope most aren't, frankly. But this is the episode, like, if you need a ground zero foundation, where do I go to understand the basics so that in all episodes that follow, when she says greenhouse gas, you say, okay, I know what that is. Oh, carbon emissions, I know what that is. This is the episode. So thank you for coming through it with me. I really appreciate it. Please let me know if you have any questions. All my info is in the outro of this podcast. But I want to end every episode with something I've learned about living sustainably this week, because I'm constantly learning new things and researching new things about sustainable living. And this one is crazy. I love it so much. I was in Plano, where I was born and raised. Actually, I wasn't born there, but I was raised there. And I walked into a Starbucks and I saw this bucket of old espresso bags filled with used coffee grounds, and it said grounds for your garden. And I researched it, and Starbucks has this huge initiative called Grounds for Your Garden, and they take used, as part of their net zero campaign, they take used coffee grounds, put them in old espresso bean bags that they were going to have to throw away anyways, and then put them at the front of their store to give away for free for people to use for their garden. And that just got me thinking, like, how genius is that? What other ways can we be getting free things for our compost? And is this actually good for my plants? Because my goal of my garden is to feed my family organic produce for free. So I need to have a pretty high crop yield in order to actually feed my family. And so I was researching it, and apparently coffee grounds are excellent to put in your compost. They're excellent to put in your garden if they're broken down a little bit. And so what I would absolutely not do is take a garden that has pumpkins that are half grown, okra that's actively growing, and sprinkle coffee grounds on it. But what I would do is put some in your compost bins and just let it sit there for a few months and break down a little. And what I would do is, if you don't have anything in your raised beds right now, to take a big old bag or 2 or 5 of those coffee grounds and sprinkle it and mix it in and mix it every week, such that 3 months from now, when March hits, it's broken down into compost. That's what I would do. And so that's what I did today. I went to my local Starbucks in Austin, and I was like, hey, it was like so awkward. I felt so weird. I was like, do y'all have like used coffee grounds? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes. And so the city of Austin actually has a composting program. And so they had it in a compostable bag ready to take to put in their compost bin for the city of Austin to collect. So they didn't have it all cute in the little grounds for your garden, like espresso thing, but I just have like a big compost bag right now of used coffee grounds actually sitting in the trunk of my car. And I'm about to go sprinkle it on my raised beds that I'm going to be tilling every week to break down all the old foliage and plants and leaves and everything for compost. So isn't that crazy? Free compost. And I was telling my friend this earlier today, there are no resources for getting free compost. You can get free mulch from some cities. You can get free coffee grounds. And you can give your food scraps to give for compost. First of all, I don't do that because I need my food scraps either to make vegetable broth or for my compost pile. But I guess most people aren't as like nutty as me. But there's just no free resources to get free compost. What you have to do is you have to get components to make compost if you need a lot of it. So get free mulch 3 to 6 months before you're going to need compost. Get free coffee grounds 2 to 3 months before you're going to need compost. And then that's how you get free compost, because compost is expensive as heck at the Natural Gardener or at Home Depot or wherever you get really high quality compost. If our goal is to feed our families organic produce that we grew and know where it comes from for less than it costs in the grocery store, we can't be spending $200 a year on new compost. So that's that on that. Thank you so much for listening. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you guys next week, and Happy New Year. Thanks for listening to the Clean Earth Living podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who wants to make a difference. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Clean Earth Living for more tips and updates. Visit our website at www.cleanearthliving.com or email us at info@cleanearthliving.com with your questions, topic ideas, or anything in between. Let's keep living clean and making a big impact. See you next time.